The Perimeter is brought to you in partnership with Speak Studios. Speak Studios. Speak and be heard. The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is brought to you by our official title sponsor, Mercedes-Benz of Spokane. Experience the best or nothing at Mercedes-Benz of Spokane with Dan Crowley and his exceptional team. They're located in beautiful Liberty Lake and his local family-owned dealership under Gee Automotive. Their staff prides itself on a personable and memorable experience from service to sales and will have you leaving the dealership feeling satisfied with a smile on your face all the way down the road. Back-to-back winners of the Best Civil Laurel Award receive invoice pricing on any new Mercedes-Benz in stock when you come in and mention the Perimeter podcast. You can check out all their available inventory at SpokaneMercedes.com, as well as stay up to date on all things Mercedes-Benz via their Facebook and Instagram pages. Call them at 509-455-9100 to schedule your Mercedes test drive today.
The Perimeter brings no-lie craft brews onto the podcast. Born and raised in Spokane, USA, No Lie Brewhouse is a hometown and international competitor, made here. Their beers have traveled and won medals against the best breweries around the world. Over 46 international brewing medals and counting. They are not content, and they're always pushing forward to peak results. Grab a sixer, and let's get into the podcast.
Welcome to the Perimeter Podcast with your host, Adam Morrison. I got one of my all-time favorite Zags friends, the voice of the Zags, Tom Hudson, with me. How are you, Huddy?
Mo, I'm great. And you know what? I haven't had a chance to talk to you. I don't know what happens as soon as the basketball season ends.
I know.
think it's family and it's, whatever, and you're getting back in, and then I kind of make that switch over to baseball. But I've been listening, and all I have to do is send you a simple text like, hey, man, it's awesome. You've had some great podcasts. Honestly, I'm not just saying that to do this for you.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, no, it's been really good. I've been listening, and like I said, it is strange, isn't it? Sometimes like, okay, well, the season ended. Hey, I'll see you. And you're like, 3 months go by. It's like, hey, what's Mo doing?
Yeah, you jump into baseball, obviously, and then, we see each other during the year. Besides COVID, we usually see each other once or twice a week.
Yeah.
I like being around you, but sometimes it's like,
I'll see you in a bit. Exactly. Yep.
And then
that happens to me right?
I'll see you June and July. Uh-huh. You know where the dock spot is. I got a cooler of beers for you. Bring the kids, throw them in the lake, all that stuff. But yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. When I first started this, this podcast is not just Zag stuff, but there's a Zag element to it.
Sure.
And you're one of the first people. Remember I told you when I was first, I was like, I want you on my show. Uh-huh. And, for obvious reasons. You've covered the team for how long?
19. I'll be going on 20 years next season. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anybody that knows just as much as Zag stories and players and teams, it's you, obviously. And obviously you're going to be humble, but like you've seen every single team from the Genesis all the way up to where we are now. So, again, I'd like to thank you again for coming on. Yeah. I usually start the shows with kind of people's genesis of how they got into the business or how we met. You graduated from University of Denver, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, what year?
91.
91. You were a tennis player, right?
I was a tennis player,
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I know. And know when they find out. Their opinions change a little bit. But but I went there and played, and it was awesome, Mo. And to be honest with you, I don't know how much of this kind of stuff we're going to get into, but, what a great experience. And as we're talking about all this, name, image, likeness, and devaluing the college education and all that stuff that comes with it. Look, man, I was a lowly tennis player, and I got my first job because I was an athlete. I mean, we talked about, you go into the interview, and it's, time management, and it's understanding sports, and it's, hey, we were having to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to go practice because we didn't have indoor courts at the time. And so, any place in town that had courts would give them to us at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? Team, understanding how to work with people, And so it was a great experience for me, and I think that's one of the things that gets lost in this whole thing. I think Charles Barkley was talking about it. Like, when did we start to devalue the educational part of this deal.
Well, we can get into that later in the conversation. I obviously have that written down because you and I have had some opinions that we can't share on our Louisville IMG broadcasts, obviously working for the Zags, and we love doing it, and then that's not saying that we get censored in any way, but we cover the games. People are listening to hear what the heck happened on a Tuesday night against Pepperdine, right? They don't care about anything else. But what got you into broadcasting?
Mo, it was kind of funny. When I first went to school, I was pre-med, and that was kind of my parents pushing, right? So I go in, and you can laugh at it because there are a couple of funny things about me.
I only laugh because you're such a good buddy of mine, and we've had so many beers. I'm like, if I went into the doctor's office and said, Tom Hudson, what does this rash look like? I just got that picture, so sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, so I go in, and all of a sudden I'm taking, calculus for the second straight year because I took it in high school. Yes. And so, I had taken it as a junior. And so I'm like, okay, I can take it. No problem. This is going to be easy. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden it's college and it's a little different deal. And then I'm taking biology and it's a little different deal. Yeah. And, and I don't really like blood all that much and I hate shots, and so you kind of start thinking about it, and then I'm watching my buddies go to, freshman math 101 where they're doing addition and subtraction, and I'm getting my butt kicked in, in calculus and biology. And so that was one quarter and I was like, I'm out. I can't do this. And so, I checked business real quick and it didn't hit for me. And my dad was awesome. He was like, hey, my dad was a businessman. He was like, don't follow me don't be pre-med. I mean, they push me, but he's like, if that's not your deal, like, go find something. And so, I took a mass comm class, just an intro class. And I was a pretty good writer. I always was, when I was in high school. And I had a great professor who kind of got me going. And then honestly, Mo, I was kind of right in the middle, even when I graduated, between being a writer and going to the broadcast side. And, I hated talking in front of crowds. I hate talking in front of people. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but we had to take a speech class in school to graduate. It was a freshman class. Yeah. I took it the last quarter of my senior year because I was scared to get up and speak. And as a matter of fact, for our final, we had to give this, 10 or 15-minute speech. And I'm drinking Bloody Marys at 7 o'clock in the morning before my final so I can get up there and go and talk to a bunch of 18-year-olds. And I'm 23, and so I was a little torn between, both those things. And then I got an internship at the ABC affiliate in Denver in my senior year and really enjoyed that. Had some great people around that kind of helped. And then, so it just kind of went from there. But even after I had graduated, I was still kind of back and forth. Am I going to write or try to write? Am I going to try to get to the TV side? And then I had met a guy, actually, while I was doing my internship in Denver. He was working at Grand Junction. He was over covering the state wrestling tournament. And so we talked a little bit and kind of hit it off, and he ended up being the sports director at the station that hired me. He said, hey, man, he's like, when you graduate, bring a tape over. I can't guarantee anything, but, drive over and we can talk. And it took a little while, but I got a job. So that was kind of it. It was like, okay, got a job there. I'd sent out a few writing samples. Nobody had bid on it. So I was like, okay, we're going into TV.
So you started, obviously, the people are not familiar. You started doing TV, like sports casting. Mm-hmm. So what was that like at first? I mean, was it fun going to covering the fucking
Fruita Monument Wildcats and the Grand Junction Central Warriors?
Yes,
and
at 11 o'clock
Tigers
on a Friday night when you're like, man, I'm 25 or whatever, and I'd rather be at the bar. Yeah. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It's hard, and there's a reality that comes with it. And I'll never forget, I had gone to the Bay Area to talk to a guy who helped with your resume tape and did some stuff, and we were going back and forth. And he's probably my age now, back then, right? Okay. So he had moved over, and he was a news anchor, and we were talking about it, and and he's like, hey, listen. He's like, sports is a young man's game. It's a young person's game because you are doing that. You're working weekends and it's and it's a lot of hours and you're doing all this stuff. And here in my mind, I'm 22, 23. Like, well, yeah, I'm a young man. Like, let's go do this. I'm going to go capture the world. Well, after you're in it for a few years, you kind of figure it out that what he was saying was true. But like you said, on the flip side of that, it is hard. I went to school in Denver, obviously, so I'm, 4 hours away from my friends. My college roommate, I don't remember if you met him, but he was working at the Ritz-Carlton in Aspen, right? And so, hey, for those who don't know Aspen, I mean, you roll in Aspen on a Friday night, and life's pretty good.
You're doing fine,
especially if you're, if you're staying at the Ritz-Carlton. I don't have 2 nickels to, to put together, but you're staying there.
That gives you a clean cover story.
Yes,
if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
okay?
but it's funny though, Mo, because now when you're working weekends, which is pretty much what you do when you get into the business, you're off Mondays and Tuesdays, and so that's a little different deal. And like you said, so Friday night stuff's going on, you miss it. Saturday night stuff's going on, you miss it. Sunday. Everybody's going to play golf unless you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and convince everybody that that's when we need to play. Right? You don't get to see people, and so
kiss my ass. Yeah, you ask me to play at 6 a.m.
exactly.
No, thanks.
No, and that's how I stopped playing golf for for 4 or 5 years. Everybody told me that, but yeah, so it's a little bit different, and then you start to see, and I think that's the hard part of the business that, and even for what you and I do that people maybe don't see. Is you do miss a lot of stuff, and I'll never forget, Mo, right when I was getting out of the TV deal, I was at a Chiefs game, and even, I was our weekday sports anchor. We still shot video, so I'm standing there at the Chiefs game, got my tie on, I've got a camera. Guy walks by me, he's holding 2 beers, and he looks at me and says, "Hey, Tom, tough job." And I look at the guy and I just start laughing, and he's got this big smile on his face. I said, "Yeah," I said, "but you know what? So I'm here working and you're here drinking 2 beers, and so we laughed about it, and obviously it was a choice that I made. But you do, you start to kind of see that stuff, and you miss reunions and you miss family stuff and you miss your buddy's golf trip. It's like, hey, we're going.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I got to work on Friday night. I got to work
cover
on Saturday.
Mead, U High,
exactly.
Regional playoff.
Yes, exactly. So
get B-roll.
Yeah, no, exactly. But the funny thing was, Mo, is I had so many great experiences in Grand Junction. I did, and there it was kind of interesting because you're young with everybody, right? So you're not going home for Christmas. Like the first time in your life, you're sitting there, hey, I don't know how many people turn on the TV and watch the news on Christmas, but the news is on.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. I didn't even think of that.
So somebody has to be there, right?
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, first time in your life, you're not with your family for Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, in a small market, everybody's going through that together, right? And so there's a little bit of camaraderie that kind of builds up, and and you're able to do that. When I came to Spokane, it was different because now you're working with people that are married, that have families, that have homes, that have lake places.
So
they don't care.
Exactly.
They're like, hey,
you're taking this. Yep, I'm fucking out of here.
Peace out. Yeah, I got my family to take care of.
So when did you start with Creme 2? The listeners not familiar with Spokane News Station, one of the 3 mains. When did you come up here and start doing that? TV?
I came up here in 96.
96.
Yeah.
You're okay. Let me give some context to Tom Hudson. I mentioned the University of Denver, but you're a Texan. You're from Houston. You grew up in Houston. What was the what was the culture difference like from Houston to Denver to here, and then how excited were you to get into because you were the main sports guy, right, at Creme 2?
Eventually, I started weekends, but
yes,
yeah. It was it was really different, Mo, because it's entirely different deal. From weather, from you go to Colorado, and a lot of people in Colorado, especially if you get to the resorts, they hate Texans, right? And we always used to laugh. It's like, hey, you know what, this quad chair with the the super fast thing that gets you up to the top of the mountain in 10 minutes instead of 45 minutes, sitting on a little button, deal. Like, it's because the Texans come here and spend a lot of money, right? So we would always kind of laugh, about that. But Denver was great, man. When I was there, it was not what it is today. In a lot of ways, it actually reminds me of Spokane, where everybody would come and visit me and they'd be like, man, this place is awesome. Like, why isn't it that big? Like, why aren't people moving here? And it was pretty small. And there's yeah, exactly.
If you're a realtor, don't tell them. But
exactly, that was suck. Exactly. That's what I've done that a lot here. I do that a whole lot actually, but it was the same thing. And so it was great. It was a great place to go to school. I went to school. DU was, I forget, it was like 60% or 80% out of state. It was crazy. So you were mixing with a lot of people from a lot of different parts of the country. And then when I went to Grand Junction, it was great. You're on the other side of the state. It's a lot of outdoor stuff. Again, very similar. I was taught how to fly fish. I was terrible at it, and I don't do it anymore. I had a buddy who was one of our engineers who hunted, and I didn't do it. Growing up in Texas, my parents weren't from there, so we didn't do a lot of that. So, I got exposed to some stuff there that was really cool. And then, coming to Spokane was different. I got a call. I actually forgot. We're going back old school. You've got an answering machine sitting on the desk at your house.
What was Tom Hudson's answering machine like? Was it stock, or did you give the George Costanza?
No, it was straight stock, and
disappointment.
Really, I know.
Should have gave me a better story than that.
I got to be quicker, Mo. That's one of my deals. I was trying to get ready for you, trying to make sure I had some good answers. But yeah, I didn't even remember where Creme was from. Hey, this is the news director, blah blah blah. And then it's like, I've never been to the Northwest. why not? I'm going to go up there. I signed a 2-year contract with a 3rd-year option with no intention of making it a 3rd year. I wanted to go back home. I wanted to be close to my family. And I got here, and I loved it. I mean, Spokane's a great community. I really enjoy it. The winters are too long, and I wouldn't recommend people move here. But for me, it made sense.
Yes.
And then I'll tell you what, too, Mo, what was a big part of that for me was winning. It was amazing. I got here in 96, and then all of a sudden, right? I mean, the Cougs go to the Rose Bowl for the first time in 7 years. That was a great story.
Yeah.
Eastern goes to the semifinals that next year. Idaho. I'm just talking on the football side. Idaho goes to a bowl game, which at the time was they'd bumped up, and so for them to go to the
it's a big deal.
and so covering winning teams is fun. Right, I mean,
yes.
it's a lot better than covering teams that are.
We'll get into that later. Yes.
So all of a sudden here I am. I'm here for a few years, and then I met my now wife. And you start to kind of settle in a little bit, and then covering Gonzaga. I mean, you talk about winners. I've seen one. Fitz's last year. I was there for, and that's kind of one of the cool things for me too, Mo. Matt Santangelo, the first Gonzaga story I ever did was on Matt. When he was a redshirt freshman. And Fitz, I never forget, Fitz said, when we were doing the interview, he was like, hey, I'm the idiot who didn't start John Stockton as a freshman. He's like, I'm not going to do that again. Matt had redshirted his first year. And so it was kind of a funny deal. But, so I was fortunate enough to be here when that was all going on too. And the next thing you look up, you're like, man, it's been 7-8 years. I kind of feel like I'm, becoming a part of the community. It's cool being here, cool living here, and so, 25 years later, here we are. But it's definitely different. My family, same thing. My brother a couple of times would come up and visit. Man, I should move here. And I was like, hey, Tim, you're here in August. We're playing golf. Having some drinks. Yes. Life's good. It's like, come back in December when it's dark. It's 3:58 and it's, 8 degrees outside for the high, and it's like, and then we can talk. I'd love to have you back up to check it out, but you've lived in Houston and Dallas your entire life. Like that probably ain't gonna work for
55
you.
55 is cold for you.
Exactly.
So let's get into, you're, like I mentioned, you're the voice of the Zags, and that's the truth. Your first year was 2003, correct?
Yeah, 2002, 2003.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was it my freshman year or the year before?
No, it was the year before your freshman year.
Okay. So how did you land that position?
Well, it was funny, and it's one of the kind of the fickle things about broadcasting, right? And that was one of the things for me, because when I was in Grand Junction, so we did a show, and it was a high school football show, and then we also Mesa State, and I think it's Colorado Mesa or whatever now, but so it was awesome because we were an ABC affiliate. So leading into Monday Night Football, we would do this half-hour show.
Oh, so you had a nice little bump.
And and so it was a fun show to do. It taught me a lot. But then the guy who ran the sports radio station, who called a lot of the games for Mesa and for the high schools, he was on the show every week to do predictions and that kind of stuff. So he and I got to know each other pretty well. And then Kirby Moss, who was our sports director, had done a little bit of play-by-play, and he was pushing me to, hey, go and, talk to Jim and figure it out. So I was able to start doing a little bit of radio then, which was awesome. And I think that's what I had always wanted to do. Once I did it a little bit, I was like, what, this feels good to me. I enjoyed it. Yeah. But then I moved up here, and then all of a sudden, KXOY had the rights to everything. Right, and you can't be on a competing station, right? I mean, Krem wasn't going to let me go and work for KXOY Radio. So, at that point, I'm kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to do the TV thing, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't like I was miserable, but it was something that I'd kind of wanted to do. Well, the rights changed. Gonzaga was at KXOY, and then the rights moved away. They were bought. They do the bidding and all the stuff, and so now all of a sudden, it's over at KGA. Okay, well, it was actually funny because at first I wasn't really sure. I had just gotten married, and it's like, I'm already out, and my wife, when we had met and a little bit at the beginning of our marriage, she's working overnights. Okay, so she's the morning show producer. We had met at Krem. She's going into work at 11 o'clock at night, and she's getting home at 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. I'm leaving work at 11:30 at night, and I'm going in at depending, noon, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we hardly saw each other. Right. And then you throw in, like you said, so now you're running around, every night you're at something, and then weekends you don't have together, and so I was like, man, that's a lot to take on. And I'm, half bashing my head against the wall. Like, I can't believe I'm about to do this, but, I'm not sure that this is something that's going to, it's going to make sense. And then luckily it kind of came back around, and, at that point it's like, okay, look, between us, we talked, and I said, this is right, here we go. I mean, this is Gonzaga, and and it's her alma mater, which was great. It was like, this is what I really want to do. And so, and I hadn't really told her. That was a funny thing. When I bring the story up to her, I never really said to her, like, hey, what do you think? I don't I don't want to
kind
of do
doing,
stuff.
Kate. Yeah. You're gonna fucking deal with it.
No, the second
I don't give
time,
a shit what you say. And I love Kate, and I've had Kate up to the leg, and your family. So when I say that, it's a wink, wink, like laughing. You know what I mean? A little bit,
but yeah. So the kind of we talked about it again. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and that was tricky, Mo, because when you go back to those times, and I don't remember if you played when we were doing those Saturday Monday deals.
Yes, no, it was Saturday. Then we played Big Monday.
Yeah, because that was when you were playing.
Because the Big Monday was the old ESPN. It was huge for Gonzaga at the time.
Yep.
But it was different when college basketball, and you understand this, college basketball was covered different, and it was the East Coast game, the throwaway East Coast game, but it was huge on the West Coast. But you'd play at fucking 8.
Yeah, we'd play 8,
9.
Yep.
And, getting into our broadcast, I don't know if it was at the time, but Huddy and I do an hour pregame and an hour postgame. And look, we love what we do, and it's fun. We get to call games for a fucking living. But when you're calling a 35-point blowout and then the buzzer rings, you go, holy shit, I got an hour to cover. What the hell are we going to talk about? That's when you sit there and go, oh, my God. Because especially even Gonzaga at those times, there was closer games, but there were some games we were going to win by 25. And you're like, it's 9 p.m. when we start. It's going to be 1 o'clock by the time I get out of this sucker.
Yeah. Well, and then, so now exasperate that when we're playing those Mondays. So, right, we're leaving on Friday. You play Saturday, Sunday. So, in theory, Sunday's your one day that you normally get if we're at home, right? You get that Sunday off. So, now we work on Monday. I would pack an extra suit, and I would wear it on the airplane, and then I would get right off the plane and go straight into work to go and work at Creme.
Wow.
Right? So now now all of a sudden it's like, okay, so I come back, you work Tuesday, Wednesday, we have a home game, so you're doing the show. And we would do a lot of stuff. We would really try to incorporate it. So, I would do live shots, like before the game, after the game from down there, right? So work on Thursday, and then, Friday, we're doing our high school basketball show. And then, and then Saturday, you're,
we got a barn burner meet versus Mount Spokane.
Hey, look at Adam Morrison. Look at that scrawny little kid. I think the Zags might sign him. But so, and then Saturday, we've got another game, and so if you were at home, you'd have Sundays off.
Yeah.
If we weren't at home, you wouldn't have anything off, right? So if we had back-to-back road weekends, all of a sudden you're like, man, this is stretching out.
My wife,
so exactly,
2 weeks basically. We live in the same house.
Yeah, so that was a little bit interesting, where you're just kind of like, okay, you're getting pushed.
Let me ask you this, Huddy. How did you develop the skill of play-by-play? Because, I have people that come up to me that listen to our broadcasts, and some of the listeners that are not Spokane people won't understand, but they're like, oh, you guys are great. And I'm always like, I ride Huddy's coattail the whole time. Like, I don't have to do shit. Like, I just, hey, Mo, what'd you think about that? You know what I mean? So, like, how did you develop that skill? Because you are really good at it. And it's not because you're my friend, but you know that.
Yeah, I appreciate
you wouldn't
that.
be for 20 years on one of the best teams in the country if you weren't good at it, okay? But also, I'm always, like, I look over, I'm like, how the fuck? He's looking at stats, and then he's calling the game. You know what I mean? Like, he's calling the game, and then nothing gets by him, and then I go into my rants, and then he brings it right back in. He still remembers the 30 seconds of what the play happened. Because I go, and sometimes I'm like, well, the guy should have done this, and then I keep going, then I look over, I'm like, oh, shit, like, Huddy's supposed to, like, tell what's happening right now. Like, how'd you develop that skill?
Well, it's funny, Mo, because I think one of the things, and again, I'm starting to get old, and so you appreciate things a little more. So showing up at a high school game when there are no rosters, I go, okay, when I started working in TV, I was still typing on a typewriter. I was just joking with somebody, and there are no cell phones. If we wanted to call in a score or something, if you're out of a game or whatever, we had two options. You would find a payphone and put a quarter in it, or we had CBs in our news cars. So you would literally get on the radio.
You get on the Breaker 101?
You would, yeah. KSB 3040, I think, was the call sign that you had to use. And then our engineer was an old military guy. So if you've got a bunch of 22, 23-year-old kids, you're like, hey, radio, you're goofing off. And he would bark because they could hear it in the engineering room. Like, knock it off. We're going to get fined, So, but so back then, it would be tough even to get on our roster. So now all of a sudden you're scrambling and you're doing stuff. So you had to really kind of figure out, how to do it and then how to make it good. Because, back then even, like the notes that we get, right? I mean, those things would be mailed. You know, I mean, the sports information guys would type them up on Monday or Tuesday, put them in the mail. You'd get them on, Thursday.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, okay, well, game's happening on Friday. So it wasn't like, the internet, you can type in a guy's name and all of a sudden you see 4 great stories about him or whatever. So, I think doing that and having to kind of scramble a little bit, right? And you're sitting up kind of in the stands with people. Yeah. And, I think, that was the beginning of it, obviously. And then working with Jim Davis, who was the guy that, that helped me get into radio there in Grand Junction. And it was awesome. I went on with him the couple times I've been in the tournament. He calls and we won. It's so great, being able to talk to a mentor. A dude who was my friend and who helped me break into the business. It's been great. But, he helped. He had tips. Hey, here, do this, do that. He'd listen to my tapes a little bit. Hey, back off here, a little bit. And, silence is golden. That's one of them that, that you're always kind of trying to figure out when and where to, to put it and how to make that work. So, and then it's just reps, right? It's like anything, once you get to it and you get better. And again, for me, Mo, it's one of the things that frustrates me about, when young people don't want to put in the time. In Grand Junction, in TVN and radio, I could kind of mess up. I could try different things, right? Because the people you were working for understood it.
Yeah.
Right? So you're like, okay, hey, I did this story and I tried to put music into it. Well, you know what? It sounded like a great idea. And when I played it I played it in Edit Bay and I was like, hey, this is awesome. And in my mind, I'm like, this is going to work and everybody's going to like it. And then it plays on TV and I'm sitting there and I'm watching. I'm like, you know what? That wasn't very good. Yeah. And so I think that having those reps in places where people understand, hey, they're going to mess up. They're going to try a little bit, and I'm going to help them get better versus trying to jump right in and do it. So, yeah. And then, like I said, reps, man. I mean, you call a lot of games and you see a lot of stuff, and it's cool. And to be honest, and I'm not gonna blow smoke for you, but I tell people this all the time. I've been fortunate with the people that I've worked with.
Yeah.
Everybody that's been a Gonzaga player. People that are well spoken, people that understand the game. Richard Fox was the first guy,
and he's doing TV now.
Yeah, he's doing
so
TV now.
He's doing.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then Matt Santangelo came on, and then I had Corey Violet for a year, and then Matt came back. Now you've been doing it for 4. It's guys that understand the game. It's guys that are invested in it, and guys that care.
Yeah,
right. And so it's cool to
gig.
Yeah, and so it's a cool thing to be able to work with people that see it well, that care about it, you know, and then have fun with it too. I think sometimes people get a little bit too serious and get over the top, and it's like, hey, I want people to think you and I are just kind of sitting in the bar, right? And we're talking about the game, and like we're having fun. I mean, we know it's serious. We know a lot of people care about it. We care about it.
Well, shit. I mean, like Huddy, like, look, we call some serious games, and we have, and those are more fun to call, 1,000%. Yeah. But there's some games where, you and I are looking at each other and there's 10 minutes to go in the second half, like, holy shit. Yeah. It's 35 point, and that's, a thing of our success at Gonzaga. It is what it is, but also it's like, all right, how about the Astros? Right? You know what I'm saying? But, and so, like, I always sit there and I'm like, for Huddy and I, it's harder than you think when it's a blowout. Okay, you have to be able to fill time. You don't want people to change the dial. Maybe they fucking do. God bless them. Because if it's, hey, it's 65-30. Let's see what whomever's playing. If they're playing the hits of the 80s or some shit, whatever. I get, but also it's like we got to fill time a little bit. And, you and I have a good rapport and we enjoy doing it. But sometimes we were sitting here like, man, we got to fill this time. Yeah. And so, like I was saying earlier, like it matters when you have somebody that, obviously we're friends. Yep. But it's just somebody that's a pro because you can get through the sequences. You sometimes look at me like, wrap it up, fucking asshole. Like, get your shit.
No, you know what?
Fill your thought. Because you're like trying to call the game. But also I'm like, we're up 30. Right. Let's just talk about whatever.
Right. And that's the tricky part of it. Right.
It's tricky. It really is tricky.
We're in a lot of ways a unique situation, right? Because I mean, so on radio, right, people can't see it, so you have to describe what's going on.
But you can make it up if you wanted to.
Exactly. Right. You could back when you were playing when all our games weren't on TV. It's now true. somebody will zing you. But I think that for us, honestly, and you talk about the success, and I think it's one of the things that Coach Hugh's been so good at over the years. We don't lose games that we should. That we shouldn't, right? Yeah. I mean, we've got a team coming in, and we were talking about this, I think, earlier this year. I mean, Portland State, 13 or 14 years ago was the last time that somebody came in and you're like, okay, wait a second, So it is kind of a hard deal because we have a lot of those games, and coaches, I mean, we see Mark before a game, and, if everybody's kind of goofing a little bit, and like, okay, it's like, He's maybe more worked up before a game that we should win by 30 than he is going out and playing at North Carolina.
I didn't bring this up in Fewey's episode, and Huddy, obviously you can attest to this, and you do the pregame interviews, okay? I'm going to give this to the fans. This is why Coach Few is one of the all-time greats, and this is going to sound funny, but he is more nervous and more agitated and more focused for the games where, if you went to Vegas, they'd say the line was fucking 30.
Yep.
And he's always been like that. And it gets annoying to a certain extent because you're like, come on. But he doesn't allow himself or the program to get to the point where like, oh, Northwestern State, guys, all right, he doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
And so you have to do the pregame interviews, and sometimes we joke, but if you get it too, you're like, well, this is why we're where we are as a program, is because he doesn't allow the program, the coaches, the players, the media guys to be like, hey, we're just going to fucking roll the ball out and beat these guys, which we probably will.
Right.
Let's just be honest.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
But so like to break a fourth wall with Fewey, I tell stories of how, grouchy and kind of be kind of an asshole sometimes in a good way. You know what I mean? Yep. And the people that listen to the episode get the needling back and forth. So when I say this, I love the guy, and I already, you know what I mean? So they know that.
Yep.
But there's some times where you're like, man, just chill out. Yep. But if you really think of the bigger picture, he's going, hey, look, man, if we allow ourselves to let our guard down, this is when a Texas Southern comes in and beats you. They get up 12 early or something, or playing hard. You know what I mean? That stuff really does happen. And so it's always funny because you do the pregame interviews for the postgame show, and sometimes you're just like, man, that guy just couldn't get anything out of him. And I kind of laugh. I'm like, I don't have to do anything. How do you just roll the tape?
No, I know.
Send it to the producer. I'll just give you my 2 cents. But I totally get it. But that's part of being a pro. And like I said, like you dealing with that stuff and dealing with the blowouts. I know it sounds funny, but like it's harder than it seems because we fill time. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's not a disrespect to the other teams or just like, oh, pat us on the back, but it's like, it's easier to call games when they're close.
Yeah. Well, and I say that all the time, Mo, right?
Like, hey, it is.
Hey, we earn our money tonight, right? Like when we've gotten one of those teams in, right? When Texas Southern comes in and you're looking at their roster and you're looking, they're 1-12 and whatever, and you're even though coach keeps everybody in line, as you and I are talking, like, okay, realistically.
Well, the players know too, but they're going to be on edge, but also, like, you're not dumb.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But, for us, it's like, okay, we're earning our money tonight. I mean, you would pay to travel to North Carolina and sit in the Dean Dome and call a game, right? I mean, you would.
1,000%.
Yeah, right?
Just to be there,
right? To be at the national championship game.
Huddy, you're nursing your beer.
Sorry, I'll
keep
get
going.
to it. But, I mean, that stuff is next level, right? I mean, it's the same thing as probably when you were playing. You're like, okay, hey, we're going to Maui. This is going to be awesome, right? I mean, there isn't a lot of motivation needs to happen. We're playing Michigan State. We're playing in the championship game. Yeah. I think same thing for us in some regards. Like I said, you do have to stay a little bit more focused and try to stay dialed in on those games.
Absolutely.
Because it is easy to slip.
Hey,
but,
you've seen me show up to some of these games. And look, I take it seriously, but I'm not trying to get myself in trouble. I always tell players, don't tell on yourself. Okay, so that's so true. But also, there's some games I look at, like I said, and you just look at somebody, like, holy shit, I gotta figure this out. And but I get there, and you got your notes, you got your stories, you got your color-coded stuff. I pull out my little piece of paper that's been sitting in my wallet. I get my 4 little points.
Hey, you have a pen I can borrow? I get that one, too. It's like we're juniors in high school. Hey, you have a number 2 pencil I can use for my test?
Our producer, Brennan's laughing right now because I've asked him like 3 times on the road, like, hey, you got a pen? Because I'll research, but I'm like, hey, you got a pen? But so let's move it along a little bit because we're going to keep talking about. So, like, starting out, like, and I don't want you to be completely honest. Like, so you did the year before I was there in 2003, right? Yeah. The season before. So you were there the last 2 seasons of the Kennel.
Yeah.
Okay, so the old Kennel. And if anybody's listening, and not all of our listeners are old Gonzaga fans, and we love it. We have a broad audience, and we're trying to grow, and it's not just Zag stuff. But, like, can you tell me, like, what has changed from the old Kennel to the new Kennel? And I know we're going to get a little prickly here.
Right.
Okay, but, like, I was lucky enough as one of the guys, and I always say this, and you've heard me talk about it on the broadcast, like, hey, I got to play in the old kennel, and then I got to play when the new building just opened, so it was fresh and everybody's excited. So I got the best of both worlds as far as a career goes.
Right.
But, like, just walk me through, like, what that feels like as a broadcaster and as a fan, as a basketball man. And I've told this to people, Huddy, and I'm not trying to toot your horn, but, like, Tom Hudson knows basketball, too. You know, they're like, I'm the color guy or whatever. I'm like, Tom, and I ask you sometimes on the broadcast, like, well, what do you think about it? You know basketball, too. Like, shit, I'm not the only guy that knows. You get what I'm saying? So, like, atmosphere-wise, like, what do you think has changed the most?
You know what's interesting, I think, Mo, because, and then again, I was fortunate enough, working in TV, you were at those games all that time, and then moving up. And so, I think there was obviously a couple of things. That first group, right back, they wrote the book and heard, they had when the Kennel Club kind of formed and everybody was, having fun. And, and I will say this, reading the book and, some of the stuff that they would do, right? Like somebody got in trouble for, breaking into a Coke machine or something. I don't remember the exact story, but so like the Kennel Club rolls in, like 2 dollies full of Cokes or something. I don't remember the story exactly, and puts them in front of their bench. I mean, stuff like that, right? Where you're taunting and you're doing all that stuff and it's good natured and it's, it's
but it's
kind of fun
stuff.
Yeah. And so, I think back then, you had that kind of crew that was really proud of it, and they kind of got it rolling in the, in the 80s and then the 90s. And then all of a sudden you start having, a lot of success. The success starts to slowly build, and we all hear the stories, and when you were a ball boy, hey, you know what? When I first got here to school, or, when I first got here, you could walk right up and buy a ticket.
Yes,
and,
100%.
You could walk in, and it was not a big deal. Well, now all of a sudden you start to win, and then people are excited, right? And the students are excited. And you're in this little bandbox, and it starts getting really loud, right? And I think, you had those groups. It's like anything. When it's new, it's fantastic, right? I mean, you're jumping out of your hair, and you're going crazy and screaming and yelling, and that was awesome. I remember, the first game we had on national TV, we played Pepperdine, right? And that place was blowing. You could have taken the roof off the Market Center. It was crazy how awesome it was. You fast forward 15 years later, and you talk about success. One of the great things for Coach Few and his program hasn't bred any kind of complacency, but probably for our students.
That's one of the craziest things, not to cut you off, but like we haven't had a down year since the 99 run. And this is not just me being a former player and a fan. If you look at the success of the program, you're like, we haven't missed the tournament. You know what I mean? Like usually that happens, and it would be normal to be like, oh, 1 year that, there's a bunch of injuries or a guy gets kicked off the team for academic, whatever. Yeah. And you make the NIT. Okay, that happens. Yeah. And then you move on. Hasn't happened.
No, it hasn't. And that's remarkable, right?
It is.
But as really that has happened, and that's one of the things that I always tell is one of the best parts of the program is just that consistency. I mean, you look at Coach Few, and it just hasn't, and the people he's had on his staff and the people around school.
You and I have talked about this off the air, and we always laugh at it. And you get asked the same question I do. What do you think the Zags going to be like next year? And I'm always just like, all right. Depends who asks me. Normally, most of the time, it's people who mean well, and there's good-hearted people. I'm also like, we've won 25 games plus a year for 20 fucking years. We're going to be fine. Okay, so like, I don't know how else to answer that question. We're going to be good.
Yeah, but you know what I'll say, Mo? No, exactly. Next year,
I don't know.
I don't know about the kid that somebody saw play once in high school in New York,
and I don't give a fuck until he gets on, campus. Right? I mean, I don't really. I can't give you the accurate portrayal of what I think as a player. Like I really can't, and that's not me being an asshole. It's just like, hey, everybody that gets recruited here is going to be recruited as a high level player. Yeah, and they are.
Yeah, for sure.
But also like, wait till he gets on campus. Right. Wait till Fewy chews him out once. Wait till he goes against the upperclassman that's trying to take his spot. Blah blah blah. It's like I really can't. I don't.
You can't answer.
And I really don't care. Right. In July, I'm not going to look at prepsoups.com.
Right.
And see who recruiting. I could give a shit.
The internet doesn't work at the lake, right? You're just like,
true, honey.
I'll be on my boat. But yeah, no, and I do think that's the interesting part too. Is almost your success has hurt, because I think now everybody expects, and then especially looking at last season when you're kind of going on the fly, right? We had a great schedule. And then all of a sudden, Orlando blew up, and now you're flying around and finding games. Sure, Virginia will play you in 4 days. But I think you win so many of these games. You're winning by 30 and 40, and I think that's taken a lot of the energy out of so many of these games because all anybody wants to do now is see you play top 10 teams. They don't want you to ever lose those games, right? They think that you're going to win every single game.
I'm sick and tired of having that argument with people, but go ahead.
And that's, I think, what's hard. So it's like, okay, teams coming in, the students know that we're going to win. Most people know we're going to win.
Yeah.
And, I always make this analogy. I have a buddy that I went to college with, and his family is like 3rd or 4th generation Nebraska football season ticket holders. Okay. They go to games to support Nebraska football, right? They go, and it doesn't matter, right? Weber State might be coming in, right? Mesa State might be coming in, a D2 team, whatever.
Yeah.
They go and they watch Nebraska football. I think we've gotten to the point where, where coach has scheduled so many difficult games. We've had such great schedules over the years that people go to see those games, right? And so it's not like, I know we're going to win this game by 30, but I want to go and see Kevin Pangos. I want to go and see Domus. I want to see our team, and I think, that's one of the things. And some of that's culture, right? And you have to kind of go, because I think, and it, because it blew up when you were playing, stuff's happened so quickly. Nebraska football has been around for 110 years, right? There's tradition in that stuff.
Yeah,
and so,
we're at 25 years max.
Yeah, right? And so I think that's kind of maybe one of those next steps is how do you get people, okay, let's find this realm where we're there and it's all in on our team tonight, not who our opponent is. I was, and you know me, I'm not a big social media guy. But I saw, that we're maybe going to play in Seattle, right? And I've talked to a few people, we're going to maybe try to bring the battle in Seattle back. And, you got a couple people commenting about, bring in, somebody saying, it's going to be a big team. And then, people are, running their mouths. Oh, is it going to be South Alabama? Is it going to be, but, and you're like, let's go and support our team. Of course, we want to see a great opponent. And of course we do. But the thing is, this is an opportunity for people in Seattle to see the Zags. There's a lot of Portland to drive up.
There's a lot of Zag fans that reside in Seattle that went to Gonzaga, blah, blah, blah. But also it's like
people from Spokane. They can go over. They don't get to see the team play in person. Can go over
the biggest thing.
So let's support Gonzaga playing versus we have to be playing a top. We have to be playing Missouri. We have to be playing Oklahoma State. Right? We have to be playing one of those teams that were in the top 10 to make it a game that you're interested in.
Well, a lot of people don't realize there's so much that goes into scheduling a college basketball game. Okay, I mean, especially if you're going to go. Okay, so Gonzaga will play South Alabama, Northwestern State. Gonzaga pays those people to come up. Okay, so if you're going to get Missouri, who I played in the Battle of Seattle. Who else? Oklahoma State. Okay,
hit the shot.
You have to get their coach and their AD to go, yes, we want to travel across the country, most likely take an L, okay, and then come back.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not as simple as we're going to play North Carolina, and they're going to come across the country, change 3 time zones, not get paid anything, might get a loss, and then see ya, and we'll handshake them and give them a Zags teacher on the way out. You know what I'm saying? So, when these people get on here, and, God bless them, they probably don't know. Okay, so it's a thing of ignorance, and ignorance is bliss sometimes. They just don't know. But also it's look, when Fewy had to do the South Alabama, that whole thing fell apart. The Battle in Seattle thing fell apart, and there's some elements to that story that are personal to a certain family that I'm not going to tell, and you understand that.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's nothing that's worthy of a podcast.
Right.
But that's the reason it happened that way.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where when these people complain, it's it's not that easy to get these marquee. And then also what happens this last year. So we play Kansas the first game of the season. Okay, Kansas is a great program. Obviously, Bill Self. We beat them. Okay, and then Kansas finishes, 5th in the Big 12 or whatever?
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't a good win. You're well, shit, what do you want us to do?
No, I know.
Because our conference is what our conference is.
Yeah.
And so how do you want us to predict these things? We're predicting on tradition, on prediction, all those things, but what do you want us to do?
And I think the other thing, Mo, that over these last probably 5 or 6 years that have changed dramatically, that I think doesn't get noticed is how hard it is to schedule when you were playing, even like as we're moving up the ladder.
Yes.
Because there's a deal that goes with that. The worst team that a high-profile coach or a high-profile team from a Power 5 conference can play is a team that's really good that their fan base hasn't heard of, right? The coach knows the team is good.
Yeah.
Okay, but nobody thinks.
Nobody thinks.
When we played Missouri, the battle in Seattle,
point.
right?
Yep.
Their fans are like, we're going to go play this Gonzaga. Where are they? They're from Spokane, and and we're going to win by 30, right? And hey, I'm going to go to that market and throw some fish or something, right? And we're going to win, and then that's it,
place,
right?
By the way,
yeah, exactly.
Get some flowers too.
Yeah, exactly.
Flower markets. Anyway, go ahead.
but so I think that's been one of the remarkable things to see as this thing has built, because you weren't able to get games. We weren't able to get home and homes, right? We'd play Memphis.
Not even close.
Cal wouldn't play us. We would play in their building. He would play us downtown.
Yes.
We played Tennessee in the battle in Seattle. We played Tennessee in Knoxville.
Yep.
Right? You had to go out and play those things and do those things. We would agree to go play Duke in Madison Square Garden, and it's not a home game. Well, if you've ever seen Duke play Madison Square Garden, especially coming from Spokane, Duke's never come back out here and returned to that. It took 20 years to do a home and home with North Carolina.
Yep.
Right? It takes a lot of time to get that stuff going. And so now we're in this thing where coach can make phone calls and get these big games. But for those years, even when you were playing, it was. I mean,
when I was playing, we were lucky we just wanted teams to play us.
Yeah.
We didn't give a shit where we play you.
Yeah, and because they were scared, right? Because
Yes.
everybody that in the know knew that you guys were good, but
Yep.
the average fan.
Well, we
Didn't
played
wanna
Oklahoma
lose.
State in Oklahoma City,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
but it was a home game for them. But like they can go, well, it was a neutral. If they lost, we beat them. Okay, we played Memphis my junior year, lost, but we played them in the grindhouse or whatever. But you know what I'm saying? Like we played those games, we had to. But now it's like, hey, if we're gonna play you, come to the Kennel. But to the point, it's like talking about a battle in Seattle, or reinvigorating, or even if it's a different name, it's like, look, that's not as simple as like, hey, we'll play you. Yeah, we'll play you. Yep. Like these coaches have contracts. These coaches have win allotments for bonuses. Mm-hmm. And I said this on another podcast that people, it was a college basketball podcast. I can see their minds just blown when I said that. So like, well, why don't we get better games? I said, some guys have a 25 win, like $250,000, $100,000 bonus. Mm-hmm. Like I'm going to schedule I'm going to make sure I get 25.
Yeah.
Right. And you, God bless them.
Yep.
And if we all were in that case, people listening to the show, we'd do the same thing.
Yep.
No question.
Yep.
And so like when people complain about the college basketball, like, well, let's get some higher profile games. Okay. You got to worry about TV rights. Okay. There's a regional, Fox Sports to CBS Sport. I mean, go down the line. There's regional contracts. Okay. Gonzaga has a local, with KHQ. I mean, okay. So like those come into play.
Yep. Sometimes
you got to get 10 games. Mm-hmm. So then if you're taking one of those games away, then everybody's, it gets tough.
Yeah.
So, talking about the battle in Seattle and stuff. And so it gets to the point where like, look, Gonzaga and Coach Few do their best. And I guarantee this to give the product, the fans the best product.
Yeah.
And you and I know that. And that's not even, us trying to sell Learfield IMG College,
right.
Us calling the games.
Right. And I think too, Mo, to your point of that, and there's a fluidity to it, right? So we go to Maui, you go to the Bahamas, you're playing 3 games in 3 days against high-level competition. Yeah. Okay, when you come home,
they're
island legs, right? And when we talk about that, the island flu, right? You've been over there for a week, and now you're going to come back, and you're not going to play a great, right? You're trying to mix and match. Okay, where can we play a game? We're pretty sure
this is
we're
why Huddy
work
is
and,
the best. No, this is true.
But, I mean, there is some of that to it. Okay, we're going to play. It's finals week. Okay, so we got our guys grinding to make sure that, they're going to be able to get their grades and get everything done. Well, we can't fly to North Carolina and play that game during finals week unless there's no other way, and we have to do it. But that's been few and far between, right? You're trying to schedule around a lot of different things and giving yourself the best opportunity to win those big-time games in the preseason, I think.
So to move along here a little bit, Huddy, what have been, besides the national championship runs, like what were some of the top moments for you as a broadcaster? Or like what groups, because we talk about it on the air a little bit, like what groups were the most fun to call for you?
boy.
Don't hurt anybody's feelings.
No, I won't. I won't. I need to think. I think obviously, my first couple of years were a lot of fun, right? Because it was new and it was, and getting to know those guys a little bit. It's kind of funny, right? Because, you're not best friends with the guys when they're younger. You cover them and, you root for them and you want them to win. For me, a lot of it's more fun now, looking at you where you are in your life, So, but I got to know those guys a little bit. And then obviously, I love to tell this story. My first year, we play Hofstra on opening night on a Friday at the Kennel. Mm-hmm. Next morning, we're on a bus to go to the airport to go to Maui. Right, so we land in Hawaii, get my bags, go, and you know how it is in Maui. It's really funny because the hotel we stay in, you've got half the rooms that face the ocean, half the rooms that face the parking lot. So I didn't know this at the time. Obviously, you're not paying attention. Now when we go, I'm kind of like, okay, you're like, look at your key. You're like, okay, evens are on that side. That's the bad one. Oh, I got it. Okay, I'm going to see ocean. But so I had an ocean view room right. So I put my key in the door and I like.
Holy shit.
Hey, life's pretty good right now, and so, that was a great time for me, and then especially, we played Utah when they were rolling with Rick Majerus, right? And then we played Indiana and Kentucky. Okay, so here I am, the first 4 games of my career, 3 of them are against, a team that's been playing for national championships for the last decade, and then 2 of the most storied programs in the history of college basketball, right? Okay, this is pretty good, and so that was a lot of fun. That group was fun. That was the year that ended with the game against Arizona.
Oh shit! Okay,
right. So now, right. So I've got that. That going. Yeah. Right. So I mean, you're like, okay, it's still one of the best games that you've ever seen. Easily. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, it was unbelievable how good a game that was. So that was a fun year for me. That was a fun group, right? I mean, those guys. And then that following year too, because it was a lot of the same guys that were back and. As you moved along, your group was fun, obviously. I mean, Rabbit, great dude. JP, great dude. You guys had a great group. Earl, I mean, I can't name every single guy, but watching you guys
I'm
play.
Here, don't hurt anybody's feelings. You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings if you fucking don't mention it.
No.
Period.
Yeah, okay. Well, good. So your group was fun, and your group was like such a different level. I tell people all the time, you're like, my goodness, going back and how what happened with you and the way you were playing and how it will never happen again. Yeah. With all the social media and all this stuff. And what a crazy, and people use, I forget the terms they use, but they drive me crazy, the natural or the, whatever it is, how it happened. Organic, right? That's our new deal. Like, it happened organically. Hey, I will never use the word, but I'm just saying, right? I mean, you go from, you had a decent year, right? But nobody's really talking about you. Hey, Adam Morrison is going to lead the country in scoring. To all of a sudden, boom. Right, it just blows up. We're in Maui, and then it's going, and it was fun to watch. Obviously, everything that was going on with you. It was crazy at times to be a part of that deal. It was nuts, right? I mean, we're standing in an airport, and we're still flying commercial, and guys are standing there with garbage bags full of basketballs for you to sign. I know that was not a fun.
Here's the thing that I tell people: one of the funniest things you can do. So these guys would show up at hotels, and you'd see this. You recognize the same faces. Like, hey, can you sign this for my uncle? Okay. And you sign this for my niece. Okay. And then you start recognizing like they're getting these to sell on eBay or whatever.
Yep.
So then you'd always ask. The key is you ask, who is this made out to? And then sometimes they get flustered. So I'd always make it out to eBay. Go Zags. Adam Morrison, number 3.
Oh, good for you.
And the look on their face, because look. I don't hate anybody trying to hustle, but also like when you're lying to college kids, you're trying to make $30 a signature. It's bullshit. It really is. It is. You know what I'm saying? And you're lying to. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're following them around and be like, sign this, and then if you don't sign, you're like, you're an asshole, you're a prick, and you're like, not really. I know what you're trying to. You're trying to make a buck off me, and nothing comes back my way,
right?
Or to the schools. Like if we could get it, but you get what I'm saying,
absolutely.
Like, and so. eBay.
To eBay. I had no idea. You never told me that story. That's so good.
And it's the look on their face, but they couldn't say anything. Like, who's this out to? And they'd be to eBay.
That is fantastic.
You know what I mean? So, but
that was a fun year though, because I take that part of it out. It was when the WCC still. Schools and teams still felt like they could beat us, right? Remember, we go to Pep and all the students are lined up, and you guys are coming off the bus.
That's such a forgotten element of
it was crazy.
Gonzaga's story now.
Yep.
And I talked to him a little bit about Few, and he kind of deflected it, which he's supposed to do.
Right.
I'm like, the energy in the opposing buildings is totally different now.
Because when you look, we joke about this sometimes. You're like, San Francisco hasn't won in Gonzaga since 1989. And I'm like,
holy shit.
I was in college, and that's crazy, right?
Crazy.
And so I think that's what happened. But back then, there was still belief, right? And there was belief. The fan base believed. I said, we're at Pep, and the bus pulls up, right? And they're all standing there and ready to yell and scream. And obviously, I'm sure you've talked about the San Francisco game, right? You come out and you're just rolling, and those fans. And I thought that was one of the coolest moments because they go from MFing you to wanting you to die to clapping and cheering because you're just going nuts, right?
Yeah.
But remember the whole standing room only thing, and the fire marshal is going to stop the game, and then people just keep coming in. Yeah, like nobody even moved, But back then it was different, right? So that part of it to me was as much fun as anything. Not the like you said, the airport stuff and the hotel stuff, but and then watching JP I'm a huge JP fan. You know that.
Still playing.
He's still playing.
JP Batista, people listening, JP Batista played with me. He was a JUCO guy from Brazil. His story is fantastic. Came from nothing, still playing basketball professionally in Brazil. Yeah. The nicest, God-fearing man you can ever meet.
And remember, and really a cool deal that, he was at Hutchinson in Kansas, right? And Kansas was looking at him, and he ended up coming to Gonzaga. And probably the quietest 19 and 10. I mean, imagine a kid today averaging a double-double of 20 and 10, essentially.
Well, we talked about it on Fewey's episode. I said, 19 and 10, and I said, we never threw him the ball, and then Fewey's like, well, you never passed him. I'm like, well, you fucking never drew a play up for his ass. So I didn't say that, but I was like, we're going to keep the conversation moving. I got to keep this going here, but also, JP.
And speaks volumes to him, and I think to all your teammates, Rabbit and Earl and Sean Mallon, you had some good dudes, and Pendo, that weren't bothered by all the success and attention you read. I mean, there'd be a lot of dudes that would be averaging 19 and a half and 10 that would have been like, hey, where's the article about me? Hey, wait a second, why aren't we talking about me? And Rabbit was a heck of a player.
I've told this story, or I've talked about this before, Huddy, is like, and I've told this to my daughter's group, like, how lucky I was that Pendo, Mallon, Earl Knight would set screens for me. Yeah. You know how hard that is to like, you're going to do it, but also like to do it with fervor and want to do it for the team's success. Mm-hmm. Like I had people that were like, hey, I'm going to get you open. Yeah. Like David Pendergraft averaged 30 points a game in high school. Yeah. Okay. Like it's not like he came in as like just a utility player. Like he came in as like a top level scorer. I got another one for you, buddy.
Hey, there we go. Sure.
Well, Huddy, I know you want more beers. But he came in as like a utility, not a utility player, but like as a high level scorer and a wing player. Yeah. And he looked at the roster and was like, I have to change my game to stay on the floor. And God bless him. And that's hard to do. But like I had guys that set screens for me willingly. Yeah. So it was a testament to like, there's one of the regrets. There's two regrets I have at Gonzaga. We're getting into tangents here, but whatever. Is I didn't get a senior night, and that was me leaving. Okay, so I didn't get a proper. But I was lucky enough to get my jersey retired. Yeah. But I was thinking back in the speech. I was sitting there like, "Fuck, I didn't thank any of my teammates." It bothered me. I was sitting there because I was like. And nothing gets Gonzaga, but like, you have 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, well, I got to get through my coaches, family, right? But I'm sitting there and I listen back to this piece. Like, I didn't think any of my teammates. Like, I felt bad. I legitimately felt bad, and it still bothers me today. And I'm like, fuck, I had a second chance to do that, and I still didn't do it. But like, the point is, like, I had guys that. JP Batista, 19 and 10. I didn't throw him the fucking ball. Like, you come on my side. Like, unless I'm getting covered, then I'm going to throw it to you, JP. I had an Earl Knight who was high level out of Seattle, right? Like, Chief Stealth. Like, we knew about Earl before that. Derek Ravio, like, one of the best ball handlers, one of the best point guards I've ever played with. I actually had brunch with Derek probably like 6 months ago. It was fucking great. We went to Old European during COVID in Idaho, so nobody gave a fuck about mask or nothing. Like, we just went and had brunch. It was just great. It was just catching up with him. He's doing great. Slanging houses, doing great. David Pendergraft, and so I'm just sitting here like, man, my career was so lucky to have guys that were selfless enough to be like, look, Mo is scoring, okay, and everybody knows that, and I don't need to sit here and try to up my deal, okay, but also like, hey, I'm going to set a down screen and then flash, and he's going to throw it to me 1 out of 10 fucking times.
Yeah,
I'm going to be happy with that. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have done that. I would have not set the screen for your ass and then flash and not get the fucking ball. I would have stayed on the side and be like, throw it, 3 in the key. Oh, sorry. You didn't throw it to me, though. You know what I mean? Like, so I totally get it. So, like, I think on the broader spectrum, and you've covered Gonzaga, obviously, for almost 20 years, that is one of the biggest differences from these other programs, because we cover other big teams, and you obviously follow college basketball, to Gonzaga. The culture is so much different, Huddy. And I want you to talk about that because you're around it.
Yeah. And you're right, Mo, and I think that's it. And I think a group like yours, right, where you've got guys who are doing that. And so now you're, and it's just been passed down a little bit. And and I think somebody's like, well, hey.
That's the hardest thing to do, though.
It is. It is very difficult to do.
Guys to understand.
And, and it's one of the things I tell people a lot. Like, people, hey, you ever think about leaving or going and getting another job or doing other stuff? And you're like, you know what? It's like, what a program we have that obviously you're winning. That's great. But they recruit kids that you want to root for. Right,
that's a good way to put it.
Part of the reason that the continuity is there, right, is that these guys come in and they're open to listening. They're open to understanding. This is how we do it. It's not, and you and Coach, because I was listening to your guys' deal. You're talking about Jalen and how great he was. Mm-hmm. Okay, there are a lot of kids over the years that knew they're going to be one and dones that had to be promised 38 minutes and 25 shots. I'm going to take bad shots, and you're going to live with it, Coach, because you really want me. And
you're lucky I'm going here.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And to think that here's a kid who we knew coming in was going to be a lottery pick. You had a feeling by the stuff that we're talking about he's going to be a top 10, and he comes in and he's completely open to being a part of Gonzaga. And I had an opportunity. It was great because, it was so hard for us this year, right? I mean, we're not around the guys at all. So you didn't get to hear them, cutting on each other in pregame meals, and you didn't get to see them on the road, and, didn't get a chance to talk to him a little bit, while we were out. And, I had that one opportunity to sit down with Jalen, and, we kind of laughed. I was like, man, it's like usually by this point, and this is January or February. I'm like, hey, Jalen, nice to meet you. Kind of laughing.
It's true.
With the way that it was going. But just sitting there and talking to him and just getting the feeling about how important it was for him to be a part of Gonzaga and how much he wanted to bring a national championship here. I mean, great maturity, obviously, but, you're recruiting that kind of kid. It wasn't this is a 6-month stop on my journey to the NBA, and I don't care what happens. Exactly. It was, I'm all in on this deal. And I think, those early groups obviously started it, and then as the success continued to grow, what a great thing to be able to say, well, hey, look, this team had, all these guys all went and played professionally, made money playing, and they still found a way to get, different guys the ball, and stuff happened, and we still had success. So we can do it. But I think they bring great kids in who understand that. I think, Mo, we've had a wonderful group. You talk about those guys that you played with, and then after you left, okay, well, now it's kind of their turn a little bit, right? And we talk about, like, for me, I always say that, and you and I just admire the heck out of guys over the years at Gonzaga that have been able to, Sam Dower is one of them that jumps out. For 3 years, Sam's playing behind some really good dudes, okay? And in 2021, if you're a freshman and you come in and you're not getting your playing time, you're like, okay,
there's the portal.
Yeah, exactly.
See ya.
You know. But I think he obviously had some understanding of, okay, look, there are guys that are better than me right now that are playing ahead of me. And he stuck around, and then all of a sudden when he's a senior, he's really good. He hits a game winner for us against Santa Clara, a game that we had to win at the time.
Yeah.
Had a really good senior year. We talk about kids like Mike Hart, who made some unbelievable plays. And
Mike Hart gets lost. Sorry to cut you off.
No,
he gets lost in the element of Zag. Yeah. And Mike was one of my all-time favorite players. I didn't cover him, but to watch. Yeah. And we used to play pickup with Mike. This is for me. When I was coming back trying to make the league and just getting back to healthy, so I'd play pickup with Mike, and this is a true story. I talked to Fewy one time, and it was B Mike sitting there watching pickup, so they can watch pickup for a certain amount of time, then I got to leave. So how come Mike Hart doesn't play? And they were like, well, we're gonna get him in. We're gonna figure this out because they recognize it, but you go to these open runs, and Mike would take charges and fucking rebound. And it was, he could hit an open three, but if it was the extra pass to the better guy,
Right.
It was fucking there, but like you'd be on the weak side. I love playing with him on your team. Like be on the weak side, he'd fucking pin down for you every time. Like, so I was like, I'm coming off like, you know what I'm saying? But like he was he's not one of the last, but he was like one of the like, you know, like Gonzaga guys, diamond in the rough, that kind of carved
true
one
walk
out.
on who didn't play AAU basketball, right? I mean,
That's fucking
you know,
crazy.
which is an awesome story in itself.
Yes,
you know, and to have that success, he was great. But you know, those are just two of the examples, right? And I think you even look at, in some regards, like look at Admon Gilder last year.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, got a chance. You know, maybe wasn't quite going, and now the chance is here, and he took advantage of it. Now all of a sudden he's making plays that are helping this program win. Yeah. You know, you look last year at Aaron Cook. You know, I mean, just, you know, 4 months. Well, where are we? We're in June. 7 months ago, maybe.
Buddy, I want to get your complete thoughts, and everybody's heard it. Listen to Joel's, but you and I were sitting there fucking beaming with confidence with Joel.
Yes.
Like how great was his success this year, and how much we're off air. We're like, fuck yeah, like fucking get him, Joel.
And how am I even forgetting? I mean, and again, one of the consummate. I'm glad you brought it up. One of the consummate stories, right? I mean, because we would talk about this. You know, I had seen Joel. You know, so you go down and when
tell
we're
the
at
story
home,
when you were sitting there watching him play against the walk-on.
Yeah,
tell that story.
We're at home, and so we do our pregame stuff. You know, so I'm down there getting set up. You know, 4 or 5 hours for the game, and then after, you know, shoot arounds over. You know, a lot of times guys stick around and work out. The red shirts are getting in some work with the coaches.
They got to get a workout in, because it's a game night. So like, to give context to the people, so like we have shoot around. So the walk-on guys might be on the scout team, which is normal. And then, like, if they're a walk-on guy or even a freshman that's probably not going to play, like, you're going to get an hour workout in. We're going to get some jumpers up because, obviously, we have a game later, so the coaches can't do it, and we're not going to do it after. Yeah. So, like, in that hour window, like, we're going to fucking sweat, and we're going to fucking move, and we're going to get some shots up. We're going to lift, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah. So he's playing one-on-one, and it's Brian Pete. You remember Brian Pete, our manager who became, remember we needed a body and we put him in a uniform. Great kid. And for him to get that opportunity to play was, again, one of our great stories.
Yes.
Like just a great kid who got a chance, and love him to death. He's fantastic. You know, those managers get beat up a lot. But so him and Joel are playing, and Brian gets him pretty good. And I'm sitting there, you know, so I got everything set up and I'm checking our interviews, make sure everything's okay. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching. I'm like, how in the world is this guy going to play at Gonzaga?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're like, wait, he just, what the heck is happening? And that's when Joel is 17 and he's 145 pounds.
Still.
And, you know, but still, you're like, oh,
I told him during the interview, I'm like, still, like, you're on scholarship.
Yeah.
Like,
this should not be happening right now. Like, it should not be happening. Right? And so as we do have the conversations like everybody does out there, you know, the season ends and you get it a little bit deeper. Okay, who's coming back? Who's going to play a role, right? Well, you and I have those conversations. And you're kind of having like, how in the world is that going to, like, how's that going to work?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. And then, you know, all of a sudden that sophomore year, I mean, he just comes out and just kept working.
Yeah.
And the greatest thing, and I told you this, you know, we had him on the Coach Few show a couple of times, and so refreshing to hear him just say, it's like, hey, you know, so you're struggling, you're not playing, not getting minutes. He's like, you know what? I wasn't good enough. It's like I was not good enough to play.
I've told that to people that, you know, like, you know, I've been lucky enough. People are like, oh, I loved your draw. So I said, you know what? The humbleness of him was really the story. Mm-hmm. Because he could have fucking laughed. Coach ain't playing me. He fucking sat there and said, I'm not good enough.
Yeah. And he's like, absolutely.
That's a hard thing to do, but also it's like the right thing. Like when you can recognize other people who are, you know, ahead of you basketball wise, who are going to tell you, hey, man, like, I'm not trying to be an asshole to you. You're a great kid. You're a great human being. You can get to this level, but right now you're not there.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And to accept that nowadays, shit. Look at the portal. There's with the portal, I saw like 1,400 players in the portal. Yeah. What the fuck is this?
Yeah. Well, no, exactly. And that's the thing, right? We're teaching kids to not face adversity. It's to run from adversity, right?
And if
it's someone else's problem.
It's somebody else's fault. Right. And it's getting to the point, and look, and I've said this a zillion times, people listen to this podcast, understand I'm not a get off my lawn type of guy. Mm-hmm. there's certain things.
You're getting there. Trust me, in about 15 years, you get to be my
I got
age.
3 kids. I pay taxes. I'm already fucking there. Okay. There's certain points I'm not, but for the most part, I'm get off my fucking lawn. Okay. But also like, hey, look, man, it's okay to go through some adversity for 6 months to a year. Okay. It teaches you things later in your life. I went through some adversity in my pro career. It's helped me out through in my life now. Like, hey, the world ain't made out for you, buddy, in a certain regards. Like not everybody's throwing the red carpet out for you. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, like it's kind of how it is. So like with Joel's story, and this is one of the main things why I want to have you on, Huddy. Not because you're my buddy. That's obviously there. But it's also like you've seen 18 years of this program and how it's progressed.
Yeah.
Like, just tell me, like, you're going into, a Tom Hudson game, going into a call game, 18 years ago, you're like, well, we might win. Now, obviously, we are, but, like, do you think it's wild that we're getting the number one? He's going to be Chet Holmgren's going to be the number one overall pick.
Yeah.
And, like, he's here. We get a decommit from Kentucky.
Yeah.
He's here.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like,
no,
Drew Timme, like, stylistic aside, if it was 15 years ago, he would probably been a top 10 pick. Now he can get to that spot. Domus proved that. Okay. So like when I say those things, it's like, look, I'm not trying to rag on Drew's game, but like stylistic, but like we have dudes now. Like, what has that been like for you as a broadcast? It's got to be crazy.
It is. It's crazy because we went through that stretch where, okay, so you go Elite 8, Sweet 16, and you're thinking, all right, it's kind of a drop off at some point here.
Yeah.
And I always tell people that when they ask about the success, and that's the biggest part of it, right? So you go to the Elite 8, how many times over the years, and even up until today, a mid-major makes a run, well, they graduate 5 guys, and then all of a sudden, and that's how the WCC was, right? If you look at the representatives in the NCAA tournament for the WCC before we went in 1999, it was changing every single year. It's like, okay, San Francisco's got, Big Continent, and they've got 5 seniors, and, and so.
Blast from the past.
Yeah, right? But now they have, 4 seniors. So they lose, and now they fall back to the back of the pack. And it's like, we're going to got to rebuild it a little bit, and our freshmen have to play minutes and take their lumps, and then we'll get old, right? I mean, that's how it works in mid-majors so much. To back that up and to go back to the Sweet 16, and then to back it up again and go to the Sweet 16, you're like, okay, But even with that, I mean, that obviously is a huge part of it to me, is that you were, okay, this isn't, I can get into a living room and talk to not Chet Holmgren, but we can talk to guys and say, hey, look, we got it rolling here a little bit. You can come and be a part. Blake Stepp was one of those kids, right? Blake was a pretty highly recruited kid. And for him to come to Gonzaga was, okay, this is a great recruiting deal for us, right?
We had a lot of discussions with Blake Stepp on Mark Few, so keep going.
But, I think, at some juncture there, you kind of felt like, okay, like it has to level off a little bit.
Yeah, no, naturally. And I thought that as a former player, too. Yeah, and it's not any disrespect. Like,
right.
A plateau year is not a bad thing.
No,
but it's a normal thing,
and it's just
now
and
it's just slowly gone like
right. And the remarkable thing is we had that stretch that everybody still leans on. 12 years later, where we didn't make it out of the first weekend. I mean, they always lose, right? You hear that national thing, whatever.
It's such a dumb.
And then
it's so dumb because it's like, look, guys, like if you look at what's the record, you probably know it. Like for us. In the last 10 years, getting out of the first round, like our record is better than
anybody. So the last time we lost in the first round was Steph Curry. I was watching TV. He just celebrated like his 33rd birthday.
Yeah, exactly. Like a 2-time MVP.
Yeah.
Like
Davidson in 2009. Yeah. 2008?
Yeah, 2000 or probably 2008.
2008. So that's the last time that Gonzaga lost in the first round.
That's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
It really is. And it's not that easy. And I think that's what happens sometimes. People just, you've got the one group that still lives in 2007, that doesn't understand that we've been winning games.
Yeah.
But then there's the other kind of party that's like, well, of course you're just going to win because all you do is win. Yeah. Right? So there's that expectation. You talk about fans and every, like, okay, well, I'm not going to book my trip until Gonzaga makes it to the Final Four. Like, well, ain't that easy. Like it really isn't
it
to
really
win
is not
the
at
first
the
and then win the second. Now, obviously, with what we've done here over these last couple of years, and you're a 1 and a 16. Yes, okay, I will admit that. But
even the 8 game is harder than you think.
Mo, we have when you look at where we've won those games since 2008, it's been all over the map. I mean, this hasn't been Gonzaga's been the 1 seed from 2009 to 2021.
Good
right?
point.
You've been
5,
you've been a
7,
5. You've been right. You've been
8,
all over
9,
the map, and so to be able to do it is so hard, and that's the thing that is remarkable. But yeah, I mean, you still there are times that you kind of we're sitting there in Indianapolis and we're about to play for another national championship. How in the world? How are we here?
It's true.
With all the respect in the world, and it's incredible. And and you tell people all the time. I mean, it's one of the greatest stories in the history of college sports, I think. And I'm me. I'm not one for hyperbole. I mean, I'm not hey, that guy's the greatest player to ever play Gonzaga. Yeah. Oh wait, 2 years later, that's the greatest guy to play. Yeah. Oh wait, 2 years later, that's the greatest guy. That's not how I do it. I am the get off your lawn, get off my lawn guy a little bit when it comes to that stuff. I mean, I really, it's like, okay, let's see how it holds. Let's see how it stands up over 2 or 3, 5, 6, 7, 10 years. But I find another story where a school playing in essentially a high school gym, like you said, in Martin Center is awesome.
High school gym.
Yeah. And that all of a sudden, gets to what it has become, just has kept growing. I don't know that it's there. I mean, you play for 2 national championships. You can get games with anybody in the country now. And I'm not just talking about basketball. I'm talking about football, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Boise State's done a great job in football. It doesn't equal what Gonzaga's done. No disrespect to the Broncos. I mean, it's a remarkable story. And to be a part of it, how
shout
cool
out
it is
to Leon Rice.
Yeah, Leon. How's that running?
We love Leon. Leon was a coach at Gonzaga when I was there.
Yeah.
My guy.
Yeah.
All-time leading Boise State. He broke the record this year.
Yeah, he did break the record. Yes. Congratulations to Leon. I always used to joke with Leon.
Leon's the best.
He is the best. But you know how he would schedule it in the early years, and they would schedule a couple teams out of the RMAC where Mesa State used to play, and he played like Shadron State and a couple of his games, and I would text him, "Hey, congratulations, Coach Rice! You won the Mountain West RMAC Challenge." Just kind of, hey, but it's great to see him doing well, and he was so much fun. Like I said, he was your guy.
Leon was the best. He's obviously a fantastic coach at Boise State. We're not taking it away. Like, he knows what he's doing.
Absolutely,
he's had a good program. Yep. He's had good players. The only thing I would say, that side OB he ran in the playing game a few years back, Leon, what the hell were you running there? Anyway, he knows we love him.
Yep.
So, okay, 2 last topics, so I didn't get you out of here, Huddy.
No, we're good.
Okay, so I was lucky enough to do have my jersey retired, or just the jersey, not the number.
Yep.
And people are like, "Oh, your number again." I'm like, okay, we're in the era of where if Chet Holmgren wants to wear number 3, we're going to let him fucking wear number 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't care. That doesn't bother me. Mm-hmm. So, just if you put my name in the rafters, I'm fine with it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So some people were like, oh, and it's like, just calm. Just get where we're coming from, okay?
Yep.
Who do you think should be on that list, Huddy? I know this is a tough question, and I know there's friends involved with you, but I was lucky enough. We had this discussion, so it was you, Fewy, myself. Who else was on that plane? It was one more. Who's playing were we on, by the way?
We were, you know what? That's a good question. We were flying down to Vegas, right?
Yes, we were flying down to Vegas for a WCC conference opening.
Was it Barry? It was Barry, our sports information director.
Okay, it was
right?
Barry, but whose plane were we on?
I should know the answer to that.
It was the guy who got pardoned by Clinton. So anyway, we're on a private jet, and Fewy brings up remember? And Fewy told the story. He's like, well, who's plane were we on? He's like, well, this guy got pardoned by Clinton, and okay, sweet. You know what I mean? So you're like, so anyway, we're on a jet down to the West Coast Conference opening deal or whatever they do, and so we interview all the coaches, and I was lucky enough, Gloria Navarez, the WCC commissioner, who I'm going to get on the show later on. Fantastic story. But she's like, hey, come down and do an interview with Andy Katz. So, we're sitting there, and then Few's like, hey, we're going down. We're going to zip down and then come back. Come on the private plane. I'm like, fuck yeah, we're doing a private plane. So anyway, we go down, and during the conversation of the plane ride, it's like, hey, Mo, we're going to retire your jersey. Who else should be?
Right.
And I was flattered. I was like, hey, guys, I appreciate it, and I knew that conversation was coming. I'm not an idiot, but also I was very flattered, trust me, because all the great players that came before me and after me, you know what I'm saying? But also it was like, okay, let's get mine out of the way, and then let's talk about what the criteria is after. And you had some poignant comments, and like I said, the whole premise of this show is like Tom Hudson have seen more Gonzaga basketball games than all of us. Okay, so who do you think is on that list, and who do you think is like next?
Okay, I'm going to throw this out first, and it's not because of today's climate. Courtney Vandersloot's got to be up there.
1,000
Courtney was
fucking percent. Courtney Vandersloot should be after mine right next.
Yeah. I mean, Courtney was unbelievable and continues to be unbelievable. Same thing. I mean, she's 11, 12-year pro career here.
I saw Courtney play.
Unbelievable.
Courtney was on the same club, Besiktas. I was in Istanbul in Turkey. And, so it was right after I was done playing. I get to see Courtney. And, I go play for them for 4 months or whatever it was. But she was on the same women's club. Mm-hmm. And so I go to a game. I'm just bored. Shit, let's go watch a women's game. Like, fuck it, let's go watch.
Yeah.
They were playing in Tarasi's club. She didn't play that game. It was Galatasaray. Every ball screen, Huddy. Fucking perfect read. Girl goes underneath it, whack, right in your fucking face, right?
Yeah.
Girl comes over to help, corner, pass, whack. You know what I'm saying? The big comes out and shows, she gets in her hip, boom, pocket pass, layup, and I'm just like, holy shit. I knew she was good, but I finally got to see her live, because when she was playing was when I was in the league.
Right.
So you're exactly right. Courtney
and I got to
Vandersloot.
see her a few times in
Courtney
games.
Vandersloot should be next one. 1,000%.
Yeah, because you're right. Because I would see her play. I'd go just a couple times, same thing. But in the preseason, right? Because we're always playing on the same night. So once you get into conference, you don't see. So I saw her play a couple games. But we had come back from an NCAA tournament that year that they were playing, and got to go see her play against high level competition. Same thing. You're like, okay, this is different.
Every read was the right read. It literally was.
And so now, Mo, you're right. See, and this is where to me it gets so difficult, because we have two things. We have this belief that our talent is better and better each year.
Yeah.
Right. So if that's the case, am I judging Jalen against Blake, for example? I'm just picking 2 point guards just randomly.
Okay.
And are we going on talent? Are we going on accolades? Are we going on what they did for the program? Because you know what I'm saying? So each time it goes by, we're like, okay, well, that guy's a little bit better.
What pillars are you using?
Yeah, yes. And I know Coach Few, as we had that conversation, there was very much has to be an All-American, it has to be this, has to be, kind of trying to get this solid, okay, we have these pillars, and this is what it's going to take. And then, you look at people, and we talk about Zag, right, and what it means to be a Zag. And how many guys are Zags that maybe weren't All-Americans?
Yeah.
But now if you do that,
then you get into
these conversations. Well, wait a second. Well, this guy had a little bit better numbers. Was he less of a Zag than that guy?
No, you get into some funny. You get some right. And when we talk about this, Huddy and I, we get into some uncomfortable conversations, because these are all great players.
Yeah, great players and friends.
And friends.
Yeah.
And so we sit there and we're like, I don't want to leave this guy off because he deserves it. But also then if you put him up against somebody else, but then also you're like, well, this guy only played here for 1.5 years. Right. Or 2 years. You know what I'm saying? Right. So then you're like, well, shit, it's not a fun. So like when you guys were like, hey, I'm going to do your jersey first, it's like, yes.
Okay, I'm out.
Let me know your opinion, but I'm fucking done.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I do think too, Mo, part of it that we haven't done it for so long.
Yeah. That was part of the problem.
Is hard, right? Because now you're trying to go back and kind of guess. So we couldn't look at it and say, okay, this guy that was playing on the 99 team deserves it because he was the leader, or maybe this whole team deserves, we should have a team deal up there. And we would have done that because every other year, every 2 years, every other year would be 2 years. Yeah. Every, 4 years, we're putting somebody in, or, whatever it is. Every year we're at least reviewing it to see. And we haven't done that for what? I mean, John was the last one who's retired, right? I mean, it's Frank and you and John. And
John was what, 2002, 1 or something like that? It was the old Kennel, but it was before the boom, or it was right during the start of the boom. So okay.
So I think we're in this kind of tough situation because now you're trying to retroactively go back and now you have to fit. Okay, well again, is All-American? Is that what qualifies you for it? Okay, well if it does, now you maybe like I said, you're leaving out some great.
Here's
Zags.
Here's I want you to keep going on your tangent, but here's the problem when you talk about All-American. Is it AP All-American?
Right.
Is it Slam Magazine All-American? You know what I mean?
And especially today, right? Because back then it was AP All-American. Yeah. It was there were maybe 3 All-Americans.
Now
it's ask Jeff Brown and his Playboy All-American stories from the early 90s.
No, it's so true.
Now there are 14 All-American teams. Like you said, Slam Magazine has one. I mean,
you can go down the line.
Blogs, any
CBS Sport. I mean, exactly. You could go down the line, and that's the hardest part. It's like, we're not trying to discount anybody's accolades. Because look. I was player of the year with AP, with Chevrolet, with Oscar Robertson. Is that less than Naismith?
Yeah.
Get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So,
right.
I come from when people ask me, and when I'm talking about this, during that conversation, Fewy, yourself were asking me, what do you think about these other guys?
Yep.
And I gave my opinion,
yep.
But also I'm like, if we're gonna go pure accolade versus pure accolade, well, what's more important? Right. It's such a hard thing
Absolutely.
to do. And for all the Zag fans, look, we all have our favorite players,
yep.
And we know they're fucking great,
yep.
And we love them, and
yep.
that's not blowing smoke
yep.
up your ass. It's true. I grew up as a ball boy, so I have some groups that. Some guys are probably not as good as you think they are,
right?
But they were my fucking guys.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's hard.
Right, it is very hard. And then, like you said too, you go to now we're in this realm of we've got guys. You've got a one and done. You've got guys who are here for a year and a half. Like how does that translate in that thing? And you look at again the first team that went to the Elite Eight. And now let's not forget for all the success we had. 2015 was the next time we had been to the Elite Eight, right? So now does that team get accolades, right? I mean, Kevin and Gary and Wilch, and we go on and on, right?
Domus
was a freshman, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a good team and had some really good players that got us back there. So now, what is the value of that? Helping win to get to that point versus maybe an individual accolade for a team that didn't go quite as far, and that's why I think it's hard.
My group is a perfect example. My sophomore year, okay, so I averaged 19. I think I was first team all blah, 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 preseason All-American, all that stuff. We went to the second round.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, do I get knocked down a pedestal? It's a fair thing to bring up in this argument.
Yeah.
That's why it's so hard, though. That's what
hard.
I'm trying to get across to people. So, when we get further along, and I'm not trying to cut you off, Huddy, but I'm giving context to the listeners. When we get further along in these jersey retirements, because a lot of guys deserve it just as much as I did.
Yeah,
they really do. They've done just as much as I've done for the program, and I want to make that 1,000% clear. Okay, these guys have done just as much as Adam Morrison has done for this program. There's going to be some hurt feelings.
Yeah, there are.
That's why I wanted to ask you, because you've covered all of them.
And we're unique a little bit, too, in the number of former players that are in our community.
Yeah, that's what hurts.
Because in
such a good point, Huddy.
So many places,
such a good point.
You go play at Kentucky, and then you go and play in the NBA, and you end up living in Los Angeles. And so obviously you'd be tremendously flattered and honored if you got it, but if you don't,
you're not.
Even if you're a little bit hurt, you're not walking down the street and seeing the guy, right?
No,
and so I think that is
a great element.
Is an interesting part, And so I think once we get caught up, Mo, it'll be a little bit easier, to be like, okay, And then again, the problem is we're trying to go back. And I heard you, when you were talking to Fewy, okay, look, guys on our team weren't these top 100 guys. You're going through that stuff, and how do you judge?
Sorry, Huddy.
Yeah.
I keep cutting you off.
No, that's all right.
It's just like the broadcast, okay? But when I re-listened to that episode, I wanted to make sure, I knew the guys that I was playing with were fucking good players.
Yeah.
1,000%. Okay. The only thing I was talking about was the recognition that the new recruits get. Okay. So when I re-listened to that, I was like, fuck. Honestly. I was sitting there
happens.
I know. Well, it was just I know Rabbit knows what type of player I thought he was.
Right.
I was in the foxhole with that guy every single time. Okay. Right. Pendo, JP, Earl, PMAC. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, they knew what type of player I thought they were.
Yeah.
And when he was like, whoa, Mo, like, what do you think? And I'm like, fuck you. Once again, you fucking threw me under the bus. It just never ends with you. You know what I mean? Yeah. I had to let it the conversation had to flow.
Yep.
But I knew what type of, but I'm saying, like, those guys weren't highly recruited. Doesn't mean they weren't good players. Doesn't mean they couldn't play on the teams now.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That and I'm saying that to you straight eye.
Right. Absolutely.
Fucking you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But also, like, when he took that comment, like, you fucking asshole. You fucking asshole. Like, and that's part of the needle with him and Fewy and I. You get that. Like, we love him, but you're like, you fucking, why'd you do that? God damn it. You know what I mean? So anyway.
Yeah. No,
keep
I do.
going.
Yeah. No, but I do think that's going to be.
This is why Huddy's one of the best. I just went on a tangent. He still has he still has the point that he was trying to make. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. No, I do think that's what, once we get caught up, I think it'll be a little bit easier. But again, right, it's so hard because I think a lot of schools, when you've retired a guy's number, maybe you did it in 1985, and it was, hey, he was this, but he was also the consummate, blank, whatever the mascot is, and he did this and he did that, and he was a great pillar in the community. We've gone so long that you almost have to find some tangent, like, okay, it has to be All-American, it has to be League Player of the Year. There have to be some things you meet because we haven't done it for so long. And now you've got, I mean, let's be honest, every team that I've covered, I think you could find a guy that you could make an argument for. You could probably put it up there. Now, not that you would, but you could say, yeah, he's,
Let's go down. Let's go quick then. Okay, so the group after me, Pengos, right?
Right.
Okay, so then what about the group after that?
Right. And
no, come on.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to think. So Domus,
but here's
is he group after?
Here's the argument against that. Okay, and again, I don't want this to be clipped.
And I know
where I'm going.
Yep.
But like, Domus only played here 2 years.
Yeah. Well,
doesn't mean you weren't a Zag. Doesn't mean you love the community. Doesn't mean you were great for the program.
Right.
Okay. And I always want to, make sure that when I say this, I got, the styrofoam out so I get my protection here. That's so true. But it's also like, okay, where's Nigel Williams-Goss coming into play?
He played for a year.
Played for 1 year, but he took the program to a national championship.
Absolutely. And so how does that...
So hard.
It is very hard.
So hard.
And Kelly's in the same boat.
Kelly's in the same...
I mean, Kelly was... not, right? His first couple of years, you're like, okay, what? And then all of a sudden he has this huge breakout year, and it was awesome. We're the first, number one seed in school history.
And these are guys,
and they're great players, and they're great people.
Exactly. You could have said it better. These are guys that we respect. These are guys that are friends of ours. I'm going to have Nigel agreed to come on the show. I've had Kelly agreed to come on the show. Like, we're not knocking there, but it's just... We're talking reality.
Yeah, if you're trying to find a number, like what is the gauge and what is the, and then, let's be honest, if you look at the stats, look at the top 5, in scoring and in rebounding, and they're, so does Kelly being a fantastic player, the best player on a team that was the first ever number 1 seed.
It's true.
Supersede the kid who's number 4 all-time scoring that maybe didn't quite have that big moment or that big accolade.
Yeah, he does.
And and so that's the thing, right? But now, as you say that, then you're looking at it, you're saying, okay, well, then what do we do with that guy that has these top 10 numbers? Because his argument, or a lot of people's argument, is going to be, well, those numbers show something. You don't come to Gonzaga and become top 10 in scoring and be a stiff, right?
Yeah.
In some regards, you probably should be. But now, again, every era, like you said, and even this, like you said, Nigel is as great an example as anybody. I think Shem is a very fascinating conversation.
Shem is a hard one if you're talking
one of the winningest players, right?
Jersey retirement of all time, because Shem, as far as dominant big men, if you look at his numbers, no question in Gonzaga history. Okay, he had the year injury but you can't take that away from a guy, okay? But that also makes a difference in the story, is what I'm saying. So it's one of those like, okay, was Shim one of the all-time, most dominating big men in Gonzaga history? Probably, but there's also guys like Casey Calvary, J.P. Batista that are in that conversation.
Right.
So then you don't want to knock Shim down a level.
Right.
Because Shim was a great kid. He was a team guy.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. Yep. When we had this conversation, I take it back to the people. I'm not trying to be narcissistic, but like, hey Mo, we're going to do yours first. Like, oh, fucking
Great.
thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go sit in the back of the plane.
I'm going to go.
I'm out of this conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'll give you my opinion after that, but also it's like, thank you. I don't have to deal because there's guys that deserved, if you're going analytically to what I did, just as much as me. When you were guys, I'm doing my first. Like, yes, okay, sweet guys, move on. So we've had this conversation a little bit on air. It's like, Huddy, who do you think? And I've always been like, I'm glad I'm out of this, or I'll give you my opinion. It doesn't really matter in my own terms. But it is a hard nut to crack.
It really is.
Because Matt Santangelo, was he second all-time in assists? Fucking great. Okay, but is there better point guards that would come after Matt? Matt would tell you yes. And that doesn't mean Matt's a shitty player.
Right.
Matt was fantastic. He played overseas for years after. He was fucking good, great player. Yeah. Okay, he's second all-time. Okay, so then you get a guy like J.P. Batista, 19 and 10, like we said, All-America in certain standards. Is there guys better than him? Probably. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, it's very hard.
Here's the hardest one. Yeah. Ronny Turiaf.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've heard me say this.
Yep. And
I'm going to say it publicly. I'm like, if we're going to do this thing, I need Ronny on that list. Uh-huh. And it's not a like he's my guy thing. It's like Ronny changed this program as far as international. Right. Okay, we get the Axel Denches. God bless you. Doesn't mean it's nothing against you. Right. But like taking a pure flyer from Europe, coming from INSEP, playing with Tony Parker, Boris Diaw, and being like high level and just going off Tommy Lloyd's word and coming here and playing, and then he ends up turning a 10, 12-year NBA career. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. So now Ronny to me, and
that's
it
the
just
hardest
is
part.
Yeah, exactly, because
it's so hard.
He embodies everything that we want to talk about, taking the intangibles versus
Zag.
the straight number. Exactly.
Straight Zag.
Right. So now so as soon as you bring in that aspect, which I agree in some level should be, but the people that want to argue we have to have a hard data point, like you have to have met this, or this.
The metric, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, because I'm with you. I mean, you look at Ronny, everything he did and how beloved he was in the community and his energy,
Ronny's
all the things
mayor
that he did.
of Spokane.
Yeah.
And people don't know it, but he is.
Yeah.
I told this story on a previous episode 2, DJ Ski. So I went to Kobe's last game, and we walk across. And, Ronny was beloved in L.A. Yeah. Okay. Towel wag. He had good moments on the court, but, like, he was always hyped on the bench, too. But, like, it was Ronny, as we know him. Yeah. But they got a taste of it in L.A. Like, walking across in L.A., Huddy, people were fucking going insane.
Wow.
Okay. They didn't notice me, which was fine. Uh-huh. But, like, people were, like, damn near like screaming like Ronny. Swear to God.
Yeah.
For 20 minutes. He couldn't even get across the street. Like, picture Ronny grabbing him.
That's awesome.
And Ronny played 15 minutes a game.
Right.
For an LA team. You know what I mean? That didn't win a champion. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like when I talk about like who elevated this program, and you mentioned it, like, where you're going to compare numbers. It's like, well, you get in the numbers thing, and we're like, well, numbers do matter, because if you're going to talk about my legacy, I'm going to bring up numbers. Right. So, like, I'm not one of these guys that's going to be like, well, fuck them.
Right.
But, like, who really elevated this program? Like, Ronny Turiaf, man. Like, and then his whole story of, the heart issue, and then making it to the Lakers, and then having a 10-year plus career, and just the man he is.
Yeah.
And so the reason I brought up the retire jersey thing, it wasn't to bring awareness to my own thing. You know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's also like somebody who's seen, oh, sweet, I'm getting a ticket in my car right now.
I'm probably getting one, too. Then I parked a few blocks down the street and didn't have any quarters.
Jesus. Is that on Speak Studios? Just say yes. Yes. Speak Studios covered me. But anyway, like what Ronnie has done for the program, it speaks volumes. Like, because this program is international, and he was one of the first guys. And look, the Australian guys. I'm not taking away from the Paul Rogers, Axel Denches, and if I'm leaving somebody out, whatever. You get what you get
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
But like taking a literal flyer, like coming to Spokane.
Yeah.
From
it was remarkable.
It was remarkable.
Yeah.
And then he
How it
set
all
the
worked
stage. And then like Ronnie had a good pro career. Like so like I'm always sitting there like when you guys bring it up and like I never get any pushback on him, but I'm like, hey guys, you got to remember Ronnie.
Yeah.
Because like some of the numbers college wise don't match up with some of these other guys, but like we got to remember what this guy did for this program as a whole.
Yeah.
And I again, Huddy, I appreciate your insight on the jersey stuff, because it's going to come to a head where we're going to hurt some feelings.
For sure.
We're going to have to hurt some feelings.
Yeah, for sure.
And it sucks because they're all, like you said, these are not places where guys leave and then you don't see them. We're like, well, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
These are guys that are like in the community, good people, family men, and we know what they've done, but also it's like we can't have fucking 15 jerseys up there.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be a joke.
No, exactly.
Right. So like it's got to have some prominence to it. It really does.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, man, I keep coming back to it. Like, glad I did mine.
Where I'm out.
See you guys. Hey, let me know your opinion, and I'll fucking give it to you. And then okay, it's not my fault. You know what I mean? So
hey, I got to. You always tell your Kobe stories, and it's funny. You talked about that, you and Ronnie being there. We went when we were down there playing LMU, Pep. We were down there, and when I was still working at TV, we were going to do a story on Ronnie.
Yeah.
Right. So our photographer comes, and we go down there, and we go, and the train wreck that Laker like LA media is, right? You go in post game, and there are 8 million people standing around Kobe, right? And we went because we heard the stories about how Kobe had helped Ronnie out, and with his heart thing, and he was unbelievable to him, how great he was, right? So so I'm standing, we're just being patient, we're waiting, because you understand, like, okay, people have deadlines. It's a game story first, right? Okay, what happened in the game? Blah 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 blah. And it's like, hey, we're doing a feature, so they're kind of laying back, and there are 8 million people around, and so we're you're looking at your watch, like 15 minutes, it's 20 minutes, it's 25 minutes. So finally, we get close enough. There's still about 7 or 8 people around, and so hey, Kobe, blah blah blah. It's like doing a story on Ronnie and his story. What I don't remember exactly the question asked, and he just flashes his smile, $1 million answer. Ronnie's a great teammate. He's, it's great to be around. Man, he could, say he can play, he can help us. He's, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. Like,
awesome.
I have, yes. So I'm like, okay, in the back of my mind, this is how I would work. So I hear that, right? I'm not going to ask 14 questions to prove that I can ask 14 questions.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's good. That's all I need. I'm also like, I'm standing here right now talking to Kobe Bryant. And this ain't going to happen again. I'm going to fire one more at him about Ronnie. So I followed up whatever he said. I followed it up. And he just looks at me and gives me a smile. He goes, Ronnie's a good teammate.
It's great.
And was just done. And he was just like, okay, fool. Like, we're done. Like, I gave you your answer. I love Ronnie. We're not doing this anymore. Like, I've been standing here for 25 minutes. And I just looked at him. I got it out of my head, kind of laughed, hit my guys. Like, hey, Brett, let's go. Like, we're out. Yeah, but he was awesome. But you're right. I mean, revered, right, everywhere in Spokane and LA.
That's
like,
the thing is, like, I've told this before, is like, us Gonzaga guys are taught to be good teammates. And, like, we know coming in to the program, or they wouldn't recruited us that, we understand the culture of, hey man, if it's not going your way, you still stand up, you cheer, you encourage your teammates. If your minutes are not going, you can earn it in practice, right? Those type of things. And so, like, with the Kobe stuff, like, I think Kobe understood that with Gonzaga guys, Ronnie, myself, Rob Sackery, Elias Harris, but we were all taught that. And I've told people that, like, when we went to that organization, like, I think that's why Mitch Kupchak, liked Gonzaga guys. Like, even if it wasn't going our way personally, we were going to show up and give you our best effort. We were going to slap you on the hand and tell you good job, or tell you what you weren't doing right on the bench when you came out. And that was every single day. It's not just one off.
Right.
It's like, hey man, it may not be working for me, but like, you slap your hand on the teammate and you tell him good job, you pat him on the head. And then if you have something and he respects you as a teammate, you're going to tell him what you saw out there.
Yeah.
And Kobe recognized that.
Yeah.
He really did.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? He did.
Yeah.
He really did. He's like, well, these guys like play hard in practice. These guys are going to give me everything they got in their minutes on the game. Mm-hmm. These guys are going to tell me like, hey, if I come off the floor, like, hey, fucker, like taking too many jump shots, you need to drive it and get fouled. You know what I mean? I tell him that stuff, and you'd be like, okay. Mm-hmm. You know, that's not a thing for me to be like, oh, look at me, but like, hey, man, you've taken 8 jumpers in a row. Like, why don't you pump fake and go to the rim?
Right.
And it wasn't like being an asshole. It was like, hey, man, like, this is me seeing the game. I understand the game. He knew I understand the game.
Right.
But he knew that about all the Gonzaga guys. And so,
cool.
like, it was cool that you shared that with us. Because, like I said, man, going into the Roney deal, like, there hasn't been a guy that has elevated the program to a level as far as recruiting, and everybody knows the Gonzaga international story. Like, and we've heard it in the previous episode with Joel, and hopefully I'm going to get Tommy Lloyd on, the new Arizona basketball coach. But, like, just talking about, everybody knows the international aspect, okay? Roney set the standard for that. Mm-hmm. And so when we're talking about, like, who made this program better and elevated it to a level that it wasn't before, and who was a high-level player, it's not just because of that, but who was a high-level ass-kicker player. Ronny Turioff belongs up there.
Yep.
And that's just my opinion.
Yep.
And I've said that opinion before off the air, and you've heard me say that.
Yep.
And I've said that, look, if I'm going to talk about other guys, I'm going to talk about Ronny Turioff first. Because part of the Gonzaga story is international.
Yep.
And not because he's first, because he kicked people's ass.
Yeah.
Sure.
For sure.
And he took a flyer.
Yep.
So, you know, I always have to get that out there. And anytime I can promote, well, Ronny was such a nice guy, and he still is.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'm going to get him on the show. It's when he comes back to Spokane. He's in France now. They can't travel. All shit going on now. So I'm like, when are you coming back? Because normally he would come back during Hoop Fest and stay on my couch, and it was great to see. You love it. Ronny and my kids, like my oldest daughter who's a hooper, is like, when's Ronny coming back? Because he just makes everybody feel, you know how Ronny is. Yep. He just makes everybody feel better about themselves.
Yep.
He really does.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yep. Like, he just makes you feel better about yourself.
Absolutely.
1,000%. We played in the small Hoop Fest on one of the bridges. The first year, and my oldest daughter is a spitting engine movie, Huddy. You've seen that,
right. Yep.
Yeah, you get it.
Yep.
And so we play Hoop Fest, we win it, and it was co-ed. And he just pulled me aside, Mo, like, your daughter is, he's sitting there, he goes, I was laughing the whole time, like, her mannerisms, she'd stand here, stretch, she's like, it's you. You know what I mean? Yep. It just made my heart just melt a little bit. He's like, dude, I just loved seeing God's way of saying, like, here's the nicer version of Adam. You know what I mean?
That's
so
good.
You know, that's so good. Anyway, not to get too sappy, no. We love Ronny Turioff. Right. Put his name in the fucking rafters. Mike Roth, even though you're retiring, Mark Few, he belongs up there. You know, he just belongs up there because, and it's not just a pity push. It's just like, look, what he did for this program, numbers wise, pro career wise, and what he did for the international stage. It's like, it's the next guy, in my opinion. Besides Courtney Vandersloot, you know, on the other side. But you know, Huddy, you know what? I appreciate you taking the time, man.
You got more stuff? I'm good.
Shit, you want to?
You got some stuff more on your list? I'm good.
Who's your favorite player of all time to cover, or like favorite group? Let's be honest.
Favorite group. Boy, that's a good question. Because again, I'll say this: like your group was a blast, right?
If you're going to tell me to continue, that fucking beer has been nursing that. Okay. No lie, right there.
Yeah,
that hazy IPA is good. Mm-hmm. It's good stuff, right?
It's very good. Yeah, it is. But I will take another one. Your group was a blast, honestly, Mo. Again, because of the dynamic of it, it was so unique, right?
Okay.
And again, because it can't ever happen again. It will not ever happen again that a guy will blow up like you blew up. And then to have a group, right? And those are some good personalities. I mean, Rabbit was quiet, but, he was sneaky, funny,
was Eminem, 8 Mile,
Yep.
you know what I mean?
Yep.
The baggy clothes.
Yeah, and JP, obviously a great dude. And Earl was, he's your buddy. I mean, I don't even have to say. But, I mean, that was a fun year because of all the stuff. Like I said, the outside stuff notwithstanding. Just the games, the energy, all of that went on.
Huddy, I'm going to cut you off.
Okay.
Who is one of the most frustrating groups you've ever covered?
Frustrating.
Like, as talent, and you're like, fuck, he could have been.
You know what's funny is that I think probably what most people would say, and I think you have to if you're going to do that kind of the groups coming right after you.
Fargo.
Because
Austin
like,
Day.
when you talk about, like the physical,
Austin was a great player. He's 6'9".
Yeah.
Pargo was a prototypical point guard, so like that group.
Yeah, but I don't know that it's frustrating as much as it
Hurt my
was.
feelings,
Yeah, no.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Because honestly, Mo, like if you think about it, we've won so many games, so it's not like you looked at it, you're like, that group was so talented, but they went 15-16. It was like that group was super talented, and they went 26-7.
Yeah, it's like,
and they lost in the first weekend.
They
lost the first weekend, and we thought they were going to go to the the Elite Eight, right?
Well, it goes back to what I was telling you when people ask you, like, well, what's Gonzaga? We're like, was like 26-8 a bad year for you?
No, exactly.
Like other programs have cut their fucking arm off for that.
Oh, exactly. Exactly, and that's the thing, because again, how unique is it? Because we can't really do that. Right? I mean, you look at some of these other programs, and people talk about Duke. Well, that group had these 8 guys. They didn't make it to the championship game, so that was a disappointment.
Yeah.
Right? I think for us, as we've moved up, I mean, this year, you and I talked about this, like, let's just please make it to the Final Four so people don't talk about this team not making, whatever. And you're like, this team was so good. This year's been so good. Like, we just need to make it to the final weekend, because if we don't, we're going to hear it all the time. And so... I think, again, that's a hard one because it's disappointing, not really, but I think that was kind of that little stretch where we weren't making out of the first weekend. Yeah. And it was kind of like, okay, where's that next step coming from? And then it came, and then now it's just, right? I mean, Sweet 16, Sweet 16, Sweet 16.
Huddy, like, I want you to tell me, like, what groups are your best to cover? Like
I said, yours.
Okay.
All right. Give me a second. I got you. You sure it's true. All right, Mo, take 2. We starting over? Or we just got to pick it up from there. You were talking about which groups were the funnest to cover. And like I said, yours was great. That my first year, obviously. I mean, like I said,
so we're still recording?
Yeah, sorry. I just kept it rolling.
Oh, nice.
Oh, perfect.
So right. I mean, going to Maui. That game in Salt Lake City against Arizona, right? I mean, that was, upper level for a guy.
So I appreciate you coming on. Yeah. I told you when I first started this, I said, I want Huddy. We're going to get drunk. We're going to tell stories. And let's do it. But again, man, like, you've been so gracious to me. We've developed, we were friends before. We developed a nice friendship.
But absolutely. No,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's been great.
Yeah,
and,
it has.
Hopefully we continue to tell games, and, the people that listen to our Learfield IMG broadcast, when it's 35-point blowout, if I'm talking about Astros baseball, you fucking don't turn the channel. Okay? But we're trying to fill time.
Yep.
Okay? But again, man, like, Huddy, like, it's been great to work with you. It's been great to travel with you. Honestly.
No, I know, isn't it fun? Like, it's crazy.
It's
like,
really fun.
When you get into it, like, you're not thinking that, right? And then that's been my experience. Like, all of a sudden, you're like, okay, well, you sit in the airport and you start talking, you start figuring stuff out, and that's
the thing. It's like,
it's fun.
This is not just a make a show relationship.
Yeah.
It's like, Huddy's my guy.
Yeah. Oh,
I've told people that Huddy's my fucking guy.
Yeah.
So, like, when you hear us on the radio, it's like, we don't have beers, but this is what we like, having beers. So we finally got to have fucking beers
while we're on the air, right?
Yeah. But that's why I wanted you to have him. Like, people get to hear, like, what we're all about.
Yeah.
And, like I said, you made it easy for me because I was green.
Yeah.
I was green as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
For real.
Yeah.
super green, and you made it easy for me to transition to that. And for real, like there's times I get off tangents, you reel me back in. You know what I mean? Like that's and a lot of guys don't have nuts to do that, but you reel me back in like, we got to call the game, Adam. Like, fucking come on. Like, we got to call the game. Like, stop talking about fucking Chelsea.
Right.
Football club. Like, you get your 30 seconds after that. Like, shut up. Nobody cares. We got Gonzaga basketball. Reel my ass back in. But it's been a pleasure to work with you.
It's been awesome. And Mo, honestly, see you doing this. It's really cool, honestly, to see you jump in and do this and have it. Because, same deal. I tell people all the time. It's like, it's easy. Because, you know the game. You understand the game. Like I said, it's one of the awesome things for me is see you guys, right, and see where you are, right, and how cool it is that you're doing this, you're still involved in the program, you're dialed into it, you care about it. I tell people all the time, it's kind of like, you might see Mo and he's not really, loud, and it's kind of, it's like you're not going to talk
trying not to fall asleep.
Yeah, but he's all dialed in.
Keep me awake.
Yeah, but no, to see this is awesome. This is cool, and maybe we can do part 2 at some point.
We'll do
down
part
the road after in about 10 years.
No. We'll do part 2. All right, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Mo, great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
If you enjoyed this episode of The Perimeter, make sure to go check out Sack and Jack, featuring 2 Zag alums, one from the court, Robert Sackery, one from the booth, Jack Ferris. That's Sack and Jack. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts. The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is brought to you in partnership with Speak Studios and Mercedes of Spokane.